cryptocurrency madness. Crypto's been everywhere recently. There's a wild rush with a lot of confusion and hype with a fear of missing out. But today, we're changing all that. We're breaking down exactly how to invest in crypto without getting played, lost, or left behind. Joining me is none other than Whitney Magic, the queen of millions and crypto expert. We're breaking down the risks, the rewards, and the mindset women need to play in this space. Because crypto, it's not just for the tech bros anymore. Hi, I'm Tamar Hermes, and this is the Women Growing Wealth podcast, where women make, invest, and keep more money the women's way. Let's dive into the madness. And if this episode speaks to you, subscribe and share it with a woman you love. Welcome to another episode of Women Growing Wealth. I'm super excited today. We're going to be talking about a subject that I did an episode on earlier, cryptocurrency. And now I brought my friend Whitney Magic, who is running a very large platform supporting people on cryptocurrency. And so I have her with me today so that we can dive into all things cryptocurrency and really learn more about this crazy world. Hello, Whitney.
Hey, Tamar. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited for this conversation.
I'm very excited. Now, before we dive in deep, I want to say this is not investing advice, although you will hear some great ideas, and we would both love for you to look more closely at that and see how you might be able to profit from that and grow your wealth. So before we get really into this cryptocurrency world, I would love for you to share how you began and why I brought you on as the cryptocurrency Whitney Magic Queen.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, it is like one of my greatest passions right now in the whole wide world to help particularly women in this crypto movement. My heart and soul is really around I want women, I want people with good hearts and good souls to have the money and to have the power on that end. And we are in this great revolution where a lot of wealth is transferring hands. A lot of the financial system is going from the traditional, a lot of very manually and very centralized into the decentralized era that's digitally run. And that's like the big crypto revolution. And so a lot of money is moving in that way as well. And I want women to be on the right side of history for that. So that's a little reason around why for me. And I have this community called Queen of Millions. But yeah, we educate a lot of women on that space. For me, going back to like my story wise, what originally brought me into crypto was I came in, I was originally an engineer, construction civil engineer living in DC. I realized that the corporate life was not for me, and I wanted to be on the pathway of freedom. And so I left that career behind and I hopped on a flight to be able to go off and create a different life for myself. I landed in Bali and really had no idea where that world was going to take me. But pretty quickly I ended up meeting a friend who spoke to me about crypto and about the macro world and about where the world is moving to and just like the very futuristic things behind things. And I ended up pulling from that. I felt the passion of like, now is the time. I pulled my retirement fund out and ended up going to feed into crypto, taking that quite seriously, going on a financial sabbatical. And within the short story to this is within 9 months of going really far into crypto, I ended up watching 25K turned over $500,000. And that is obviously quite exponential. But a big reason from that was just being very calculated with the certain cryptos that I was looking at and also getting the timeline right and understanding like when the crypto world pumps and dumps and everything else in between.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And there's so much to this conversation, and there's such a spectrum around cryptocurrency, which is part of the reason why I also did an episode earlier, if anyone wants to watch, about the liquidity in the system, which we're probably not going to have time to get into today, but it's a driver in terms of how cryptocurrency moves. But what I want to get talking about is just the basics in terms of, let's say I'm a woman who has done really well financially and I want to diversify my portfolio. I understand that there is this thing called Bitcoin, and that it goes on a lot of balance sheets for a lot of companies. And some women that I know actually have Bitcoin on their balance sheets. So I'd love for you to share why you think that you mentioned it already, why the cryptocurrency is here to stay and how it's the digital revolution. But even further, if you can explain what really is going on, where we know that certain cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are probably not going to go away anytime soon.
Yes. Oh, okay. Where do we begin here? So this last year, just to give some context, I'm like glowing with excitement, especially these past few weeks in the crypto world. But this past year has been very historic for crypto because we've seen a different level of adoption in and around crypto that we've never seen before. And so I've even just like for listeners and for yourself as well, Tamara, just like checking in of like, if we want to zoom back in time, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, what was the sentiment around crypto? And
Oh, that it was very risky and kind of a scam and a Ponzi. And if you went in, that you were likely going to lose your money.
yes, yes. And now what this year we have easily a lot of financial advisors are being like, yeah, you should easily be getting 1 to 3% of Bitcoin in your crypto, in your investments, in your assets. We have the US government, we have Trump and his family building on things. We have now companies that are building out strategic Bitcoin and Ethereum reserves and putting that in their on their books. So we're seeing not only millions, but we are seeing billions of dollars flooding into the crypto world, which is something that has been quite historic. And if we want to take a look at the laundry list of other like big thought leaders and big CEOs that back crypto, I like to say just take a look at where those people are seeing the world is moving towards. And it's like if they're getting behind it, then we may want to direct some attention there on that front. But ETFs have been a really big highlight of seeing the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF. So even if you're an investor right now and you're like, I want to get exposure, but I don't necessarily feel comfortable with like opening up a Coinbase account and all the risks that come with certain things, that's fine. You can go move even some of your retirement fund or some of your stocks and get exposure to the Bitcoin or the Ethereum ETF, which is helping you get exposure to ETH and Bitcoin rising. So I don't mean to go too far down that rabbit hole, but really we have hit a tipping point where, I like this analogy of like back in the early 2000s and the late 90s was like the dot-com boom and where the internet was being adopted. And this is really a question and a conversation around can you see all the ways that crypto has continuously been adopted more and more? The reputation is shifting. Regulations are by the governments are all actually coming into fruition. This was, I think, 2 weeks ago, mid-July, we had Crypto Week. And so we're even now getting more clarity around like how to deal with stablecoins and all that such. So I don't mean to get too far into like the details, but I really just want to highlight on a high level that we have hit a tipping point in the adoption where the world, governments, people of authority are saying crypto cannot die. It is part of the future. And now it's up to you as an investor to understand, do I want to invest now? Do I want to be an earlier adopter? Or do I want to wait until like my grandparents or older parents decide to like really start to turn their heads towards crypto as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like I always say with investing, is make sure that you understand what you're investing in, make sure that you're comfortable. And if an asset class just turns into something that is not for you, then it may not be for you. And part of Women Growing Wealth podcast is about introducing you to these opportunities and in to help you understand more about what your options are in terms of directions to diversify your portfolio. And then you make the decision. And within the crypto market, you also have a huge variance. But yes, we are at about a 3 trillion and it is estimated to grow to 100 trillion. The reason why is a lot of things that Whitney already pointed out, and also that with all the spending in our government and with the dollar and around, actually, not just in our government, but around the world, we really devalued the dollar quite a bit and currency. And Bitcoin has this finite amount because it is a fix. So it's kind of acting a bit as gold was when it was weighing against the dollar. And so this is another reason that a lot of companies are seeing the value of putting it on their books. The other thing is that I wanted to mention is that crypto is really just continually adopting into this space of our world, and enabling us to make transactions really easy and interact with the world on a playing field where people that didn't have money before can have money now, which is huge, especially in this time where we're seeing the wealthy get wealthier and the people that are challenged feel really even more challenged. So I just wanted to add that in as we go. And I completely understand what you were talking about with the ETFs. It's definitely something that I was going to talk about later in the podcast, but I love that you brought it up. And the reason that I love it too is because it's something that I am actually investing in now, using the Bitcoin ETF, which I found was very comforting for me because I didn't have to deal with the wallets and all of that. Let's go ahead and talk about that, because I think one of the hesitations with cryptocurrency has to do with the fact that it feels really foreign to have money on a wallet or on an exchange that can get hacked. Can you talk about that and talk about how you help your clients feel more comfortable in that space?
Yeah, yeah. Before we get fully into the like how tos, one thing to realize in the crypto space, like I'm such a big believer of this, of like what you were saying around education and knowing what you're investing in. It matters so much. And so one of the first questions that I like, so I'm going to plant you with first with the seed, depending on where you are. Ask yourself a question during this podcast: is crypto for me? Yes or no? If the answer is a yes, then you can proceed on to the next. But if not, then just keep on getting to that answer until it becomes a yes or a no clear for you. Step number 2 is, what are your wealth goals? And I find a lot of people skip over this step, and instead they're like, this friend is pushing this meme, or they're saying this coin, and in crypto, it's very emotional. And I'm sure people can see this just even on like their Instagram feeds or whatever social media you have, of like, there's a lot of emotions that live within the crypto space, which is great. And also it's important for you to really discern and start off for yourself to be like, what is the game plan that I have? What do I feel comfortable taking risk with? What are my goals? With that mindset, you can then figure out what type of cryptos you actually want to get into, what games you want to play. I'm personally a girl who does not play with like leverage. I do not touch that in the crypto world. And it's just really being able to diversify yourself and be like, I'm open for this game and not that game. These crypto investments versus not that. So you can go safer. You can go like things that have really solid use, really solid adoption, still get really great gains, but you don't have to get into crazy risky mode. And it's just understanding first off with what really is your wealth goals.
I love that. And I love that we backed up a little. And that's certainly something that I talk about a lot in my mentorship as well, is getting clear about the goals, which is not always easy to do. And you're right. Once you get into an arena where there are investment opportunities and people are sharing it, you can definitely feel like you're missing the boat if you don't jump in. And that is definitely not really the right the recipe for success in terms of what you're investing in. And I wanted to also, I was going to share, there was another thing I was going to say, but I can't remember. Hopefully it'll come back to me. I think I still have Europe brain, but I was thinking in terms of the difference between volatility and risk, which is part of the reason why a lot of people don't want to invest in cryptocurrency too, has to do with the fact that they feel that it's so volatile and they equate that with risk. But volatility and risk are different. I just wanted to also share that when you're sharing about crypto going up and down, you're also looking at a bigger picture in terms of what's going to happen in the long run of a meme or whatever you're investing in, or based on your research. Certainly memes are a lot more speculative than something like Bitcoin. But of course, risk is like, you see something go down and you panic and you get out. That is, yes, it's risky if you cannot hold the volatility. But I have to say that with getting into Bitcoin, I've definitely had a ride, and definitely I had a hack. I had a couple things happen. What I've learned is more learning how to manage the volatility, learning how to manage all of the ebbs and flows of things, and working with that. So yeah, awesome.
With the volatility, one thing I like to say is, because people can I mean, the human mind naturally goes to fear or like, how do I protect myself? And therefore we can be like, if I'm down, like I get fearful of being down 20% or 50% or whatever that is. But what in the crypto world, I like to see it as volatility is not a bug. It's not the bad thing. Volatility is a feature. If I was not in, like, if crypto was not so volatile for me, I would not have been able to see volatility happen on the upside going from 25K to $500,000. The reason people are in crypto is because you sign up for volatility on the upside. But this is why I really say, like, what are your wealth goals? And then the name of the game in crypto is really how do you study timing in the cycles? Because if you can start to see this of being like, okay, volatility is a given, how do I time when the market is down? And when do I time that the market historically pumps? Because we're entering in these seasons where like that's where altcoins become really fruitful. So just want to plant the seed there that volatility is not evil. It's actually why you're here, because that's the thing that can give you exponential gains.
Okay. And I remember what I was going to say now, which was really important. I wanted to make sure that we didn't brush over when you talked about leverage, because leverage is something that early investors don't always understand. You know, the first time we get into leverage is generally when we buy our first property and we have a loan and a mortgage on our house. That is leverage. We're borrowing money from the bank. So what happens in cryptocurrency is that a lot of people will leverage their whole retirement account, or they'll leverage all of their savings, or they'll leverage on the Bitcoin. They'll do staking. There's all kinds of things that you can do. And I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more on that. It's just so the listeners can understand more about what that means in the crypto world.
Yeah. So leverage is like buying on debt. It's using debt, it's using borrowed money to be able to help get more exposure for you. I love the mindset in the crypto world of make sure you're not investing more than you're willing to lose. And if you get into leverage, you're playing a dangerous game. The reason it's dangerous is because the way that, in short, that leverage works is that if prices drop down too far, you can get knocked out of your positions, knocked out. So you would get sold out automatically. In crypto, volatility that we just spoke about, if prices randomly on 1 hour, one day wick down and knock you out of the position, you're out and you don't own those assets anymore because um, you got called out of that spot.
Yeah,
And
you had debt on it, so it's basically you had a lender
yeah,
that will take your anything any money that you had in there away,
yeah.
any coins or
So this is where I find a lot of guys in crypto, like they love leaning into the leverage game. And there's like the common saying, I forget who was it, Warren Buffett or someone, who's like, ladies, liquor and leverage. Those are like the three things to stay away from for men. And I also like to say that just in the crypto world of like, I believe like invest in things where you have solid conviction, solid belief around what you're investing in. I love investing in tech. I love investing in things that are innovating in the crypto world. And so I wouldn't want to be bumped out of my positions, which is why I personally don't play with leverage. I just say, how about I get a really strong conviction, a really strong research, a really strong understanding, good solid entry points, and then I play it that way rather than having to bet my money plus the house type of a thing.
Right. Yeah. I see that a lot because there are definitely people that I've met that have really dove into this world. And even when they understand it and do the research, the thing about investing is that you're not always going to be right. Even when you're almost positive you're going to be right, you're not going to be right. And you certainly can't time everything perfectly. So you do want to be prudent when you're investing, that you're not putting in anything where you need the money in a certain time, or that you're putting in too much, and if it goes down that it's really gonna hurt your way of life and everything that you've built. And that's another important aspect. And certainly most of the women that listen to my podcast are pretty responsible about that sort of thing. Although this is a world that I obviously want to introduce with good reason. And so I'd love for anyone listening to the podcast to get some sense in terms of where they want to land, what they do want financially, and see what feels good to them. Now, can you talk a little bit more now about the ETFs and the wallets and how we get into that? Because I feel like that's another big reason that people do not like to get into the cryptocurrency world because they don't feel like they feel like their money's going onto the blockchain somewhere or on a little disk that you're going to hide in a security box, and then the codes are all there, but you have to not put them anywhere so no one else gets them, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah. Yeah. So a big thing that I like to approach in just with this conversation, because we're adding some layers of complexity, is I love doing crypto simply. Simplification and like actually asking what's necessary. So there will be a lot of things that you get to ask yourself as you keep on going into your crypto journey of like, is this for me or is this not? There's just a lot of options we get to pick and choose between. But to start off, okay, so in the crypto world, the way that if you're going to go like the classical way, you would open up an exchange. So that's where it's like 3 exchanges that I like as an American: Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini. You can open up any of those. I like to have multiple ones just in case something happens to one. You can leave. The important thing and the reason that you need an exchange in some way, shape, or form is to go from US dollar into crypto. And you need some broker for that degree. So you can open an account with that. The reason that some people have blocks around opening up accounts on that is because historically in the past, some of those exchanges have gone down. We can hear about FTX, BlockFi, Celsius. People have lost money from that. And that's one thing to realize, that some of these exchanges, they are centralized. Those are risks. We are shifting into a different world right now, especially with regulation of governments, where I think that those shutting down those bankruptcies are going to be much lesser. But still, for me, one of the best practices that I personally like is the money that I leave on exchanges. It's enough that I'm either willing to lose or willing to part ways with if something were to go bankrupt or go wrong within those companies. That's my personal belief. You're super fine to leave your stuff on exchange, but personally, I like to leave most of my money on hardware wallets. So just to bucket out, to zoom out a little bit, there's ETFs. So if you're someone who you're like, I don't want to touch any of this stuff on opening up an exchange and all that such, and definitely don't want to go further down the blockchain, then you can just go on an ETF and you can buy either Bitcoin or Ethereum at this point. That's all you have really access to. The challenge with ETFs is that you're very limited with the number of coins you can buy. And you also don't own your cryptos. Instead, you're buying it through an ETF, which means like if BlackRock owns that ETF, BlackRock technically owns it, you don't. Just getting into layers there. So ETF makes it really easy, less coins for sure, option wise. Next option, you can open up an exchange. Exchanges are great. They're necessary for different reasons. And they let you buy certain coins. But once again, whatever coins are listed on exchanges, those are the only ones you have access to be able to buy. Some people, like myself included, I like to go further into the DeFi, the decentralized finance world. To buy a lot of coins that I like to buy, I need to start to use things on the blockchain. I need to use decentralized exchanges. And the reason I like to do that is because I like to invest in coins when they're earlier, before they have mass adoption, before they're on centralized exchanges. And so I think it's just understanding why you want to do certain things. Like, I like owning my own cryptos. I like having them on a hardware wallet device on cold storage. I like having the ownership of my own crypto so that no governments, no institutions can like take my money for whatever reason or freeze accounts. And then I also like being able to get into coins before masses have been into it. And therefore, usually the prices are lower. So let me know how that is. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's a great overview in terms of how we can how we can get into cryptocurrency and how we can use different sources, exchanges. There's pluses and negatives to everything. Right before the episode started, I was sharing with Whitney that, and I might have even shared it on this podcast already, that I have invested in ETFs. I also have Bitcoin and some cryptocurrencies on exchanges and in wallets. But what I like with the ETFs is that comfort of knowing that it is institutionalized. Like sometimes I just want to be part of it, but I don't want to have the headache. And it's true, technically, I don't own it. Maybe BlackRock owns it, but I still feel like it's pretty secure because it it's very secure because it's through Charles Schwab, who is basically selling me that. That said, also, I know that we started talking about financial advisors and that some are adopting, and many I find are still rather conservative because it is seen as being quite volatile and risky. And I think that financial advisors are concerned about their clients coming back and saying, "Hey, I put money in this and now it's down 40%." And so yeah, if you want a financial advisor to oversee it, then you usually need to find one that actually will say that they work in cryptocurrency, and they'll generally work with the ETFs because that is what's regulated by the government, and they are fiduciaries, so they are obligated to work with those types of funds.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing to drop in around so hardware wallets, I find I'm going to go a little further into that as a rabbit hole. So you may wonder why I need this. And personally, for me too, I was for the first few years that I was in, I was like, this feels like an annoying little hurdle. And if anyone doesn't know what a hardware wallet is, like if you've heard about a Ledger or a Trezor, it's a device that you can securely store your crypto onto. And I like to see this as like a deep dark vault. So this is like, go back and ask yourself, if you hold Bitcoin or like you believe in the future of these things, what is the intention of this for you? And a lot of people, if they're like, I believe and I can see that that Bitcoin's not going away, it's digital gold, what they will say is, I want to own this, and this may be something that I want to pass down to my family. Like, I want this to be legacy. And so what some people will do is they will put Bitcoin or whatever coins that they want to hold on like a deep dark like vault basically for them, and protect that so that it's not something you have to worry about passing down necessarily, like going through like the governmental hands of like different exchanges and such, but it's something that you can own. That's just one reason, is like, we don't know where the world's moving towards. If people are taking a hedge against, like, if you're concerned about just governmental factors and how much people are centralizing and controlling things, some people like to say, I want my money and my Bitcoin in my own hand. So,
Right. And it doesn't mean you don't have to declare it
right, correct. You
to the government.
you still own the asset, but it's on the blockchain. It's in your hands. It's not in Gemini's. It's not in Charles Schwab's. It's in yours.
Uh-huh. Correct, correct. And so these are all things to think about. Now, the main cryptocurrencies, as you said, Bitcoin and Ethereum now have ETFs. Solana, those are kind of the three big ones. There's other ones that have come into play that have really been lasting a long time. Those are the three that I mostly invest in because I tend to be rather conservative at this point, although I really believe in the returns and in the long play of these cryptocurrencies. Now, let's talk about the world of crypto. I know that when you started out, you started talking about these altcoins, and I would love for you to dive in and share a little bit more about what the altcoin is, what the difference is between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and why you would want to take the chances on an altcoin, on that kind of investment, or something that's also another kind of coin, which is a meme coin, and give us an insight into that world.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So to start off, welcome to the world of altcoins. I'm personally, just disclosure, I'm not a big meme coin investor. There's a lot of reasons why, but I have a few, but I'm not really a big meme coin investor. I prefer investing in tech or things that are part of, have a little bit more adoption in the
Right.
crypto world.
Meme is more. Do we want to share what the meme
Well,
coin is so
let's,
people understand?
I'll do that in a little bit.
Okay, sure. You
Yeah.
do your thing.
Yeah. So, just to give some context. So, first off, welcome to the world of altcoins in the crypto world. So, this is where I like to compare it to the internet. We know that the internet is just not the internet, but instead, when you go into the internet, there's search engines, there's social media, there's domains, there's all these different spheres in the internet world. The same thing has happened over in the crypto world. So, there's every coin has different use cases or different reasons, different like rationales behind it. And people will use these coins for different reasons. So here's a few examples. Yes, meme coins, they're one sector. Meme coins are simply just like, think about as well. So you guys have heard, I'm sure you've heard of like Dogecoin or Pepe. These are examples of just like cute dog faces or cute coins, some sort of movement that gets like, people are like, yeah, this to the moon or whatever it is, there becomes a community, a cult like following behind this one thing. And that's really what a meme is. A meme is more so about community following, which also very much helps drive up price, because at the end of the day, we're looking at supply and demand. If people get behind it and people give it value, that meme coin can turn into $1 billion thing, which is what some of them have. So meme coins are very speculative. I'm not a big meme coin investor, but that's one sphere. In the altcoin space, there's something I'd mentioned before, which is DeFi, decentralized finance. I personally love DeFi. I'm a big DeFi girly. Ethereum fits in. Ethereum, Sui, Solana, Pulse Chain, Uniswap, like anything that allows you to be able to transact and to be able to use things on the blockchain. Getting into details, that's what DeFi is. So then there's just a few other examples. There's decentralized AI, there's real world assets protocols. I can go down a whole laundry list of different sectors that live within the AI world, but I like to zoom out and be like, this is first the AI, the altcoin space has different parts and different spheres. So that's the first thing. Next, so you asked about the difference between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then I'm going to layer this into the altcoins. So Bitcoin, for context, okay, let's see. I think today let's check this out. We're at a $2.3 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. So that's the reason I bring this up. Significant to see market cap. If you don't know what that is, it's just simply saying the amount of money that's behind a certain asset at this time, or value, not just money, but just the value of that asset. So
$2.3 trillion.
Trillion dollars, yes. Bitcoin's been around since 2009. It is the largest and the oldest, the first crypto that's been around. When we're taking a look at gains and growth, I like to compare it and see these almost as like ships at the sea. So I like to see a Bitcoin when Bitcoin's moving, like it's solid adoption. It's going to solidly go up. I believe it's going to be worth millions. Like one Bitcoin will be worth $1 million or more in the next coming decade to decades, just because of supply demand metrics and where things are going. We'll see how the world takes it on. But either way, Bitcoin is solid, steady, stable. It also takes a lot more money to get into Bitcoin to be able to raise price up. So for Bitcoin to raise up by 100%, it has to go from a $2.3 trillion market cap up to a $4.6 trillion market cap. And so it just takes trillions of dollars to move the price up exponentially. And this is where altcoins come into play, because Bitcoin, it's great. It has solid adoption. You have to ask yourself if that's in your risk tolerances and your wealth goals, all that such. I think it's great and it serves a purpose in your portfolio. Ethereum is the same way. I like to see this as digital oil. A lot of the decentralized finance world is backed by Ethereum. A lot of stable coins, a lot of capital lives on Ethereum. Ethereum is really important. We can keep on going down the list of different cryptos. There's millions out there. But the reason people really love altcoins is because they have a smaller market cap. And so I like to see these as like either the little jet skis or the like insert whatever boat you want to see, but like some fast little boat that's zipping across the water and that has the ability for its price chart to go up a lot more. And us as investors want something that has, if you're playing in the higher risk zone, something that has a smaller market cap adoption so that it takes less money for price to go up. With that being said, there's a lot of coins out there that are garbage. I love doing research. I love understanding what it is, but really just planting the seed that the reason that altcoins are so appealing is because they have the ability for price to go up faster. And honestly, if price can go up faster, let's say you can take some of that capital, you can rotate it back into Bitcoin, you can buy more Bitcoin. I'm gonna take a little pause on that one, but that's me, like my introduction into just the altcoin space and why it's so appealing for a lot of investors.
And if I wanted to, let's say, really dive into altcoins,
Yeah.
where would I begin? And how do you propose that that journey, other than, of course, joining your community?
Yeah. So in the crypto space, I like to say like the number one thing is you do need to have a foundation if you do want to get into the space. So you can go through like YouTube University of like just going through different YouTube things that you like. Personally, I do teach a free class, which is like crypto confident class that if anyone wants to join on in, I think we'll have a link down below or something anyways. But that's something that you can get in. I like to say that's a really great entry point to start in to like help discern with where you want to start in your journey. But really around altcoins, if you want to start off really simply, the three that I like to just start off with, I mean, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, I think are just like no brainers. They're easy. But a big thing with altcoins is like, yes, you want to understand what you want to invest in, but really you want to start to see the cycles to see when the right time is to buy. Because the crypto market moves so fast and so exponentially. If you're buying when everyone's screaming about like, oh, I'm a millionaire, crypto's going to go to the moon, even further beyond, odds are you're going to be too late and you're going to be buying a high, and it doesn't matter how much higher it really goes because the odds are is it's probably going to drop more than what you think the price will go up with, and you won't be selling. So if you, this is where I really say like focusing on the timing in the crypto market cycle and seeing those patterns is one of the greatest keys that you can get. And then just making sure that you're investing in coins that are in relationship to your wealth goals.
Do you need to make this a full-time job if you're
Yeah.
wanting to get into the space? Not, I think you don't if you're just doing Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana and holding positions, because those are ones that I think all most experts believe that those will be tried and true. And like you already mentioned, that you felt Bitcoin was going to be worth quite a bit in a decade. But for the other ones, how closely do you need to watch those? And do you need to, do you need to be aware when you need to get out of an altcoin and sell? And I love this also, this conversation, because it really is the same theme for all investing, which is to analyze, look at what you want, look at what you're doing, and put your focus there, and then understand what your options are inside of that world. So what are your thoughts on it?
Timeline wise. So do I think it needs to be a full-time job? No. Not at all. But what I do think is we all know we're in the information era. We're in a stage right now where we are all overwhelmed with, well, maybe not all of us, but like you can be very overwhelmed by information easily. Therefore, leading, if you're like, I have so much information in my world, I have so many options, paralysis around indecision, and then you ultimately just go into freeze mode. Like that's everyone has different reactions, of course, to it of like the flight, freeze, fawn, all that stuff. But I like to say in the crypto world, if you are overwhelmed with information, a lot of times, and I find this with ladies, they'll be like, I'm just gonna like put this away for a little while. And oftentimes when they start to feel that way, I'm like, this is usually a time where you just need to go to the people that you trust, go to those information sources that you really enjoy getting information from and that help you make decisions, and actually just get clear on your plan. And so in the crypto world, I think one thing that is key if you go down this is like just make sure you have those trusted sources for information, especially as you're a beginner, so you can start to train your mind as to what are the patterns that are coming up in the market, what questions should I be asking myself, how is this landscape changing? Because right now in this market cycle and this year, the thing that's really different is that institutions have entered the market, and with the whole liquidity flow with interest rates and such too, that's also changed the landscape as well. So if you're getting into the space, this is where I say just make sure you find those sources of people that feel like home for you, where you can consume information and make high quality decisions for yourself. For some people, they can get that through YouTube. Raw Paul is a good spot for macro stuff. A lot of ladies,
Mhm.
a lot of ladies come to me because I have like a research team, and then also I share a lot of information on weekly calls and such to make it in a simplified, digestible way. Also, women coming together. So really, this is where I just say, if you go into the altcoin space, just make sure you have a game plan and make sure you have a trusted team of people that are on the same team as you and share the same values.
Where do you see all this going with the cryptocurrency world in the
Mm.
next 5 years?
I genuinely believe that we won't realize how many transactions happen on the blockchain. You won't realize when you're actually using crypto. And I think for a lot of people, like, I mean, it's even now on the internet, like you and I were doing this you're in Austin, I'm over here in Massachusetts. And like, you don't realize a lot of times when you actually have to use the internet, it's gonna be the same thing that happens with crypto, especially now seeing how much the US government has worked on regulations around stable coins. the US government is being like, we trust this, we know. I have a feeling the US government will probably end up using some crypto to help alleviate some of the debt crisis things that are going on. We'll see how things go on that end, but I have a feeling humans will not realize when they're using crypto, and it will just be part of the digital automated world that we live in.
Right. Yeah. That's so interesting to think about. And I know that yesterday I was having lunch with a friend and she told me a client paid her with Bitcoin,
Yeah.
and people have bought real estate with Bitcoin. And so it's already happening where we're having these transactions happen that are actually through cryptocurrency, and not small amounts either. So regardless of whatever anyone thinks about that is listening to the podcast, one thing to remember is just be aware, and even awareness is power, right? Knowledge is power. So that's another thing that we wanted to bring forth today, and I think you're doing a beautiful job, Whitney, of sharing this whole world to us. What else am I missing? What else do women need to know?
For women, I think it's remembering that women do crypto differently than men. And so a lot of men are the ones screaming about crypto in different ways. A lot of men are like chasing prices up and down. So even just going back to the time commitment, um, you don't have to be a super highly active trader. For example, for myself, I am doing less trades than more in a year. So like the bulk of my like big trades is I'll be buying in at multiple different dates. I'll be dollar cost averaging in, but I may only exit out once or twice a year. And that's based on my goals where I'm timing it my market cycle timing wise. I'm trying to do once the market really gains and really pumps up, that's the time to be able to peel off a good chunk of money. A lot of other guys will try to do a lot more swing trading and a lot of inter trades, which I which is great for them because that's their game plan, that's their goal. But if you are a lady who's like, I want to work more research based, I want to work more pattern based, I want peace of mind to go live my life and maybe have my career and have my family life and everything else, then maybe you want to play a different game than them. And so this is where I'm really big on just like, I'll keep on asking ladies where I'm like, is it this or is it that? Can we get really clear on what is a no for you so that your yeses can feel so clean and easy, and crypto can feel like a more peaceful state because you've really just owned what your investing plan is.
I love that. Now let's talk about the market cycle. And can you share a little bit about where we're at in the crypto cycle and why you're particularly excited right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, historically, what happens in the crypto world? So, there's this legendary altcoin season that everyone screams about. Altcoin season for me was the time that I told you of when my portfolio did a 22x, it gained exponentially. It's a time where a lot of crypto millionaires are made. What is key to realize in this time is we have had, and what's different with this market cycle is historically, Bitcoin will be the first coin to move up. And we've seen this happen for the past year, year and a half of like Bitcoin has moved from what? You've seen it, if you've been tracking, you've seen it gone through the 40,000s, 50,000s, 60,000s, 80,000s. Right now we're at 118,000, I think, today.
Hmm.
So Bitcoin has had its strength. So in the market, Bitcoin dominance is the thing that people look for. We're now getting to a point where the Bitcoin dominance is shifting from Bitcoin and into Ethereum. So Bitcoin will grow, but it won't grow as fast. So as an investor, we obviously like to see percent gains, and it won't have as much growth for this next year, this next 6, 9 months. And then instead, what we've seen is now ETH has been on a big run. And so ETH has gone from 2K, 2,200. Now, today we're sitting at $3,800.
Right.
I believe ETH will still have its next leg and kick. So we're still in the ETH phase. Then from there, the next phase that we get into is around altcoin season. And I think that we're in it slash like entering a more intense season of it. And a big thing that will matter at this, and what I'm really been taking a look at, is really liquidity, global liquidity, and interest rates. So there's a lot more to get into that on that end. But I think what will happen come So we're in Q3 right now. Between Q3 and Q4, we'll see more rises up within crypto. We may see some dips off when some institutions want to take profit. That may be natural and normal. I'm still curious. There's a lot of other things that I'm looking into. The question in my mind is, are we going to have an extended cycle? And once again, that's really going to matter about liquidity and interest rates and who is printing / not, like how just the government responds to the landscape and the time. So more than anything right now, I'm just really turned to the data, but the data is just showing a very healthy trend of like, we're moving into that altcoin season, which we've all been waiting for. And between Q3 and Q4 right now in crypto, it's a really ripe time if altcoins have been something that's been on your mind.
I love that. I love that. And you can also be more of an investor like me, where, you are a long-term investor, and it's something that with Bitcoin, but as you said, in a decade, you think it's going to be worth a substantial amount of money. So for me to hold Bitcoin and just hold it and set it and forget it, just like I would hold Tesla, is also a strategy if that's what feels right for you. But there's this whole world that I really wanted the women that are listening to understand and just be exposed to and see if it's right for them, then to take the next step forward. So if you are one of those women, Whitney, how can women get in touch with you? And I know you have a free gift, so I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So if you want more information, if you're like, I'm still in the learning mode, I still want more exposure, you can head on over, or I think we'll have down below a link for a crypto confident class that I teach. You can either catch it live of whenever the next one is that we have it, or you can catch the replay, but just sign up there. And that's really a space where I'm like, come on, let's nerd out a little bit more. Let's see what else you have to really, that you want to go deeper in. So that's the thing there. If you're like, I've heard enough, I'm already ready to hop on in. You can head on over to queenofmillions.com/queenofmillions. That's my website. And you can join the community that lives on that front. Or if you have more questions and you want to say hey, say hi to me on Instagram at whitney.magic.crypto. I love just chatting. Tell me that you've come from this podcast, and I'd love to just hear about your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And this has been great. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And this is the Women Growing Wealth podcast. And please subscribe if you like this, and leave comments. And I really appreciate it. Helps me get more exposure out to more women. And you can also tell a friend about it. Why not? We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Tamar.